you and your spouse are actually pretty smart. I'm going to just bake that in, right? That you guys,
you and your spouse plus the Lord, you can figure it out.
And I believe that the necessary recipe for all good decisions is having the right people in the room and not enough time to make that decision. Okay. Because we need a sense that we've got to find a solution, have a sense of urgency because this is an important thing. So if you're not able to sit through a family meeting or whatever without it deteriorating, right? You need to be able to sit back and diagnose the problem, because it might be something as simple as, little Johnny is all that he wants to do is he's very self-centered. And then if somebody throws him off,
right.
Well, figure that out and maybe put Johnny in a place where he's not always hitting and touching his brothers and sisters and ticking everybody else off and the meeting falls apart from there. Or maybe it's, hey, you guys had a great idea, but you didn't think about how, as mom and dad, but you didn't think how it would be received by the kids. And it went too long. Things got, out of hand. And then Dad got really frustrated that no one was paying attention. Mom was trying to defend the idea, but also being sensitive. What is it? Diagnose the problem so that you can then provide a creative and thoughtful solution. Welcome to the podcast. We're so glad you joined us today. This is we get questions all the time.
We love questions.
And we want to respond to the relevant and kind of pressing issues or challenges that families are under. But we were at a conference in the Midwest, and we got a lot of questions that we couldn't get to during the conference.
We had 33 questions. Those are the ones that we have, that we haven't
responded to.
But there's some that we've already responded to, and a lot of these questions too were upvoted.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of questions, and we felt bad that we didn't get to all of them. So all of you who went to the Midwest Family Conference, who heard us there, we're answering the questions that we didn't get to now.
And if you think that these are relevant questions, I think this is going to be for everybody, right? Because some of these questions we hear over and over again.
Yeah.
And but we want to make it. We're going to do some of them maybe rapid fire responses to give you some.
It's very hard for us to do rapid fire. We're not rapid fire.
I know. It takes us a half an hour just to say hello. Yeah. All right. Before we jump into the topic, two invitations that we have for you. First is you're doing something beautiful for moms.
September 11th in the evening. Though it is obviously a national holiday on September 11th. Right. We want to remember that. But that was really the best time for us to do a webinar for mothers who are preparing their daughters for adolescence. So maybe this is for moms who have girls who are 5, 6, 7, and they're looking ahead at that time of adolescence. Or maybe you have a teenage daughter and you're looking at the world and the challenges and saying, how do I help her? How do I guide her? How do I need to prepare myself for this journey? So join us at the Women Wonderfully Made webinar. You say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. and so this is for moms only, but it is a special time with some great advice and insight that you'll be able to get. And for those who do attend, there's also a special giveaway.
Yeah. For people who are at the webinar, I'm going to choose one of those names. Actually, I'm probably going to have Katie do it. And we're going to pick a name, and then you get a free Women Wonderfully Made course. So there's that, and plus we'll have other free downloads for everybody who comes. There'll be a discount
for anybody who does sign up to take the course, even if they don't get the free one. There is a discount that will be given to everybody.
Right. And last time, I think we had like 700, maybe 1,000 women sign up, and it was really, really fun. It's so great for me to be able to see moms, to talk to them, answer questions, give you some encouragement. I mean, we women, we need to stand together in this community.
And as we go back to school, great.
Absolutely.
And we're coming to winding down in the summer. Maybe your kids are already back at school, or they're shortly going to be back to school. And we want to give you one other invitation, an opportunity, a unique opportunity.
Very unique opportunity.
To come away with us to the beautiful Bahamas.
That's right.
And as you get back into the school year and you think about, okay, how's our marriage doing? Mm-hmm. What are we going to be doing in the doldrums of the winter in January? Is it
after
time?
the Mom Olympics through Thanksgiving and Christmas and everything, moms need a break. So right now, be the most amazing husband in the world and book a trip with us January 15th through 19th, I think it is.
Something like that,
it's on the website.
Yeah.
Go check it out. But it's 2 weeks. In the first 2 weeks of January. It's not Super Bowl weekend. We've done that twice. We're not doing that again.
Yeah. But what is the date? We're gonna the early bird. There's you can join us at you can probably buy it. We're going to run out of space eventually, but there is room still left right now for couples to join us. The early bird.
Early bird ends September 1st. So this is 1st. Like really a quick
Last chance,
turnaround. No, you can register after September 1st, but if you want the $200 off, you got to register by September 1st. And whenever we say sandals in the Bahamas, all I can think of is Michael Scott in The Office. I have to admit it. I thought of that every time.
You could get the little braid. Didn't you come back with that little? Anyway, but it will be with Father Sean Monahan, really beautiful priest of the Oblates, and really fun and energetic. Also, Kana and Annie Hickman. They will be joining us as our partners in this and sharing a weekend where you're going to have tons of fun, a great relaxing vacation experience. But you're going to come back stronger in your marriage, more confident in what you're doing in leading your family, and it will be spiritual renewing as well.
You'll be refreshed. You will be refreshed.
Together, right?
And it's not a huge amount of people either. I mean, this is not like a big conference. This is, 30, 40 couples that are going to be with us, that we get to know, that we can hang out with you on the beach, that we can, have drinks together, have dinners together. And it's such an amazing time. And we've never gone to Sandals in the Bahamas before, but it was surprisingly affordable compared to our other getaways. Yeah. So we are really, really happy. And they have been amazing to work with so far. Yeah. So you're going to have a great experience. So anyway, go ahead, sign up, get your discount today.
CatholicCouples.com.
CatholicCouplesGetaway.com.
Thank you. Anyway, all right. So let's jump into today's topic, which is going to be what are the people concerned about? What are families struggling with right now? What are the questions?
Okay. Number one question that we have here that was upvoted is, how can I handle family members with the temper? So there's 14 people that upvoted that question. And so I'm like, wow. It's a lot of angry people out
all right,
there.
So family members.
What is going on in the Midwest?
Well, that's a world, right? So we live in a world that
no,
has.
That's true.
Now, we said with
so I don't
families,
know what that means. I don't know
immediate family within your.
That's what it
immediate,
looks like. Yeah. So I maybe that means dad specifically, or maybe it means.
Why would you be so sexist?
I don't know, or maybe they're talking about themselves. See, I was a little surprised by that because normally people ask about themselves. Like, I get really angry, triggered at my kids, but this is switching it around, which I thought was an interesting question.
It is.
How do I deal with other family members with a temper? And my initial reaction always is you have to start with yourself, because even if the other person is being triggered and angry and aggressive, you yourself can help calm that situation by your reaction. Because if you respond in kind to that person, if they're already angry, a lot of times that's throwing fuel on the fire. Also, if you say things like, calm down, or why are you so upset?
Not going to help you.
Does not help. Do not do that. But I think the best thing that you can do is have your own heart right, and even think ahead of time, what am I going to do when that moment happens? And make sure that you can see that other family member with the eyes of love, because if they're your family member, your spouse, or your children, you do have a responsibility for their formation, right? In both of those relationships. So what's the best way to begin that formation is to have your own heart right, and to have that mindset that says, I am here to help them. Right.
So, and that's going to probably be our advice almost forever, right? That you start with yourself. And I think that's really a good place to begin, right? So
to begin.
Yeah. And then, but then to kind of take it back, at least from what I might be perceiving in the question, you're coming from a place where you feel uncomfortable. Maybe you're not feeling safe. Maybe you're not feeling, if it's a spousal thing, maybe you're not sure about where the kids are and all this and what's happening in how this disrupts the whole family, right? So just even calling that out and saying, why does this bother me? Right. So that I can clearly identify stuff, because as you said, there might be stuff going on inside of you that is triggered. Maybe you grew up in a family that was not safe, maybe. Not safe or emotionally or physically.
Yeah.
And again, and we won't make caveats on everything, but whenever there is anger involved, I almost wish we could have like the anger ladder, like of showing the different levels. Like let's identify, what are we talking about here? How serious is it? Is this at violent action? Yeah. Is there physical destruction of property or
right? They throwing stuff. Yeah. Like what are we talking about?
Or is there a quick outburst or what have you? And then kind of just doubling off of you is, what does that mean inside of me and what are my concerns, so that I can be very clear-minded about the situation, so I can see, hey, I'm feeling tense when this happens, or am I concerned about what image it's giving to the kids if it's a spouse, or if it's a kid that's exploding. Oftentimes when someone says they're concerned with anger, do we want just peace? Do we want to just, hey, stuff it down? Yeah. Just deal with it and
just don't react like that.
Don't react. That's not a good, like, just so you can sift through your own reactions, so that when you approach a situation, you're like, okay, hey, this is not for a good order in our family. Yeah. Right? And maybe that person has some justification for their anger. I'm not saying that anyone is allowed to yell, scream, kick, break, blah, blah, blah. Abusive, yeah. But if there's some truth at it, dive into that and look about it, because if it's your child, which is something that obviously we've dealt with before, we have kids who get angry. And so if it's a child and they're frustrated because they're not having a need met, let's dive into that. Maybe just ask the question, seek first to understand, hey, what's going on? I know you're being disordered, so we don't want to react with anger. Out of control emotion doesn't need another out of control emotion.
Absolutely.
So you seek first to understand, and maybe they can't even articulate why they're upset. Look at the context. Look at what's going on, and so that you can say, hey, maybe there's an unmet need of that child in that situation, and then training them so that they can get to a better place, because. Our goal, for whether it be spouse or for our kids, is that they are experiencing greater freedom, greater autonomy, independence in their emotional life, that they're well regulated, because they're going to be better human beings. Yeah. They're going to be more who God made them to be. And so we're not doing this to punish them or to simply inflict consequences, although those may be part of it. The goal really here is to help form them so that they are able to regulate their own emotions. Right. And there are justifications of when we ought to be angry. You ought to be angry with an injustice, but that doesn't mean that you just scream and lash out. That's, the feeling of anger is something's off. And so figuring out what that is and figuring out why they're doing that, so that, and the sooner you get that in a child, the better.
Yeah.
And anyways, that's the, kind of building off of first checking yourself, and then building on seeking to understand what's really going on. And then if it's your spouse, first wisdom here is, we have a whole podcast on why correcting your spouse probably isn't the best idea.
Yeah.
But bringing a concern to your spouse, like, I'll just say this as a man, when Alicia points out my faults, and she doesn't, but when that happens, it's not something where, anyone's going to receive it really, really well. However, if it comes with, hey, I see this dynamic and I don't feel like it's good for the family, kind of presenting the problem almost a little bit detached from the individual, and say, how can I help? Or here's the problem. I'm not sure what the solution is. If you need help, I'm happy to help you. Because really what you want, even for your child, but particularly for your spouse, you want them to own it and them to work on it and them invite you in.
I think the whole idea also with your spouse of seeking to understand outside of the situation is very important. So you can even ask them, invite them to be self-reflective, and just say out, maybe after the anger, diffuse the situation as best you can, but then ask them later, what was going on there?
Right.
Like you had such a strong reaction. Don't even say you got angry. Just say you had such a strong reaction to this situation. You know,
that doesn't seem like you.
Yeah. Yeah. What was going on? What was going on? And why do you think you reacted so strongly? And just to kind of like help them to think about that, because at the end of the day, that's what I feel like we can do for our spouses is really
invite them to greater self-reflection.
Invite them to greater self-reflection and really like accompany them, to be honest with you, you know, and you can also share, hey, when you reacted that way, this is what was happening inside of me. Like this is when you did that, like there have been times in our marriage where Mike would get really angry and I would feel scared.
Yes.
And we had to talk about that. And I had to say, when you reacted that way, that really scared me. And I don't like feeling
for me
that way.
To hear
Totally.
that.
Yes, exactly. Because again,
we don't understand. We don't perceive it.
It's it's a further invitation to self-reflection.
Right.
For you to, for our spouses to realize when you react in that way, this is what's happening inside of me.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a really important conversation to have. And also to say that without judgment,
right?
You know, without judgment, and recognize and really pray for a heart for your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, because you know that they are doing the best that they can, or that they are trying, that they want to be a good dad, that they want to be a good mom, you know, because moms obviously get very angry too. There've been lots of times when I've been a lot more reactive than you've been, you know, or even to say, when you act that way, when you had that reaction, this is the effect I saw on the children, you know, and just to kind of have that, how can we, how can I help you?
And even saying things like, I know you probably didn't mean this, but this is what I saw in the children's reaction, or this is the way I felt. I know that you didn't mean it that way, but this is what I received. This is how it was perceived by the kids. This is, and giving this space for this, particularly if it's the spouse, like, and this is true on some smaller level with the kids, right? You know, that it's like, hey, I know you probably didn't mean this, but, and again, not that you're trying to teach the kids that they have to watch their emotions, that they walk on eggshells around people, but you have to want to teach them how to both regulate for their own good, but also that it affects others. Like we were meant for community. So there is there's always a communal impact of that, particularly when it's in public among our family. And so challenging, inviting them in.
And I think always having that disposition of we're all on a journey. We're all and be okay growing in holiness. We're all at different places, and not having an attitude of defensiveness, combativeness, conflict, you know what I mean? But to have a disposition of service. And I know
we need to go on other questions. I'm just going to say one last thing, particularly for dads. Men, we have a great gift and a power in our masculinity. We are usually physically stronger, bigger. Our voices are usually more powerful. We have to recognize that we cannot correct, like there may be an injustice. Our emotional lack of self-control in letting anger out is an abuse of power. And we need to recognize that if we feel embarrassment or guilt over it, it's calling us to change the way we react and the way that we respond, and really be curious about that. But we should never take on a shame or an embarrassment of like that we should cover it up or defend ourselves. Yeah. So just take it.
Yeah. Okay. What are some practical tips for guarding and defending family culture when kids' teammates, neighborhoods, and cousins have worldly values?
Oh boy. So if you're a family and you happen to live in a situation where you're actually seeing other people.
You happen to live in the world.
Okay. Yeah. All right, I can put myself in that situation. I theoretically, right? No, but we live in a world that does not share our values, period. End of discussion.
Guys, we're living in a pagan world.
Right.
You are raising children in a world of pagans, and just be like, okay, here's where we are.
And that's,
don't expect any different.
And if you don't know what that means, because you are, have a false view of reality, or are naive, or of course, your kids are going to be influenced by the culture upon which we find ourselves, and you're the community, this specific community that you find yourselves in. So first, I'm just going to do one big thing. That's why we really do believe where you live does matter. It's like you can be a great Christian, family in almost any situation, but there are situations that are more challenging, and require you to do more than in other situations. And so, but there is no easy button. No matter where you live, there is no place that there isn't a secular paganish culture that's.
So I guess what you're
us.
saying is that there has to be. You do need a critical mass of other families who share your values. Maybe you find that in your school community. Maybe you find it in a homeschooling community. Maybe you find it in your parish.
Right.
You do need that. But what they're saying specifically is kids' teammates.
That's right.
Neighbor kids and cousins. So outside of your
immediate
community,
family.
Outside of your community of people who do support you, because you do need that when your kids come in contact with other people outside of that.
Right. So just to kind of repeat, the first line of defense is surrounding yourself with other good, like-minded community. Second is that you are not out to be a bulldozer clearing the way for your kids, but preparing your kids to go out into the world. Right. And you have to recognize that our goal isn't to keep them in a bubble, but our work ought to be more like a greenhouse where our kids are growing stronger so that they can be planted out in another place.
And also because two reasons for that. Number one, your kids have to learn how to live in the world.
That's right.
Even at the age of 6, 7, 8 years old. And number two, the world needs your children.
Yeah.
Maybe those neighbor kids come from a divorced family. They need to see a family where you have mom and dad loving each other.
Right.
Maybe those cousins are being raised without any faith. They need to see joyful Catholics who love the church, who love the Lord, and who love other people.
Right.
That is so important. The world needs your children. So how do you keep your family culture strong? Well, you do all of the things that we talk about in our podcast. Keep in mind those 4 disciplines of a family. Number one, you have to have a strong spiritual life in your home.
Right.
You need to pray together. You need to talk to your children about the Lord. I had a conversation this morning with one of my sons, and I asked him, I said, this situation in your life, do you truly believe God cares about this?
Yeah.
Do you truly believe God cares about this group of friends? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, I agree with you. God does care. Because sometimes kids can feel like, oh, God is like a church thing. No, God cares about everything.
That's right.
He cares about everything, and he allows things to happen for our good. Second, have a strong marriage.
Yeah.
Have a strong marriage so your children can see and participate in the love of your sacrament within the home all the time. Number 3, love your kids. Love them. Have your children know that they are loved by God the Father because their father and mother love them.
Right.
And then 4th, help your kids to develop their own giftedness. Help them to develop your own relationships within the home, going back and forth, all of you guys loving each other in that family culture. So your routines, your traditions, your rituals, we really believe, I believe this so strongly because I believe that God is faithful, that if you double down on your family culture, you will inoculate your children against the culture of the world.
Right.
And we have to know that if we make our kids are in that greenhouse and they are strong and they know what true love is. They know what true beauty is. They know what true relationships look like. If they go out and they hear and they come in contact with kids who are saying other things, they're not going to be like, oh, that sounds right. Oh, my parents never talked about that. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. No, your kids are going to be like, that doesn't seem right to me. I don't know about that. And you'll have a relationship with your kids. Well, they'll come back and ask you questions. And you can answer those questions and you can talk to them about it, and don't be afraid.
And the beauty and the honor we have as parents is to help form and shape our children. Yeah. And God gives us everything that we need to help form them into the people they're meant to be. And some of the tools that he gives us is stuff that we do in our home proactively, meaning the traditions, the rituals, the habits, the family dinners, the way we pray, the way they see mom and dad interact and love each other. All of that we can kind of control and proactively, intentionally do. Yeah. And then God gives us another great tool, the crazy mixed up world that we find ourselves in. And that is a beautiful gift. We have to recognize it as a gift. When our kids are taking the faith and the values and the love and the authenticity and the identity and the belonging that they get while they're in our home, and that comes in conflict with the world's values, that is an even greater gift to teach our kids about the beauty and that richness of what we believe. And so we need to look at these as not as adverse moments and upsets and so forth, but actually this is a good thing, because when our kids see this, that means that we're now trying to make not just this idea theoretical, but it's making it relevant to the current situations that our kids find themselves in. Exactly. When your kids are struggling with a teammate who picked on them, or they don't feel welcomed, well, great. This is not that you want your kids to experience this per se, but as we talked about, your kids need to experience that if they're going to grow, if it's going to mature, because we always talk about this idea of growing from merely protecting their innocence, which we have an obligation to protect their innocence. But then we're slowly moving them to building Christian maturity. And Christian maturity is when the truth and the power of the truth, if you will, now is in conflict with a reality where it's like, okay, when there's suffering, when there's pain, when there's discord, when all of that happens, these are moments that we need to shine and say, I see this as a moment where my kid can now take, and I don't want to say it's just theory, right? But put the theory into practice and then put the belief into real life. And so that's what we have. We have the joy and beauty so when we see those opportunities, we don't run from them. We don't try to again, when they're little, we protect them. We protect their innocence. But as they get into the 10, 11, 12, we need to use these as great opportunities to mold and shape our kids and take on what is relevant and in their mind and in their heart and speak into, preach into, pour into that situation, so that our kids can now, like even the simple little thing that you did with our kids saying, hey, do you think God cares about this particular situation? That's taking the truth and applying it to his lived experience, making it relevant in his life. And that's when they make it their own. Right. And that's what we're all about, is to really, giving them the keys to drive their own car.
And one thing, I was actually listening to a Jordan Peterson podcast, and one of his ideas, which I really do appreciate, and I feel like that we've done too. He was talking to parents, and he was saying, don't be afraid to explore secular ideas and philosophies and talk about them around the dinner table. Yeah. If there are philosophies out there, like, different, whether it's economic philosophies, socialism, or even sexual philosophies, sexual revolution, all of that, don't be afraid to bring those ideas to your dinner table and say, hey, what do you guys think about this? Let's talk about this, and teach your children about things that you fundamentally disagree with. Right. Because when they come across those ideas, they won't be surprised by them. They won't be like, oh, I've never heard about communism before. That sounds great, Yeah. But instead, have that conversation. Hey, guys, just so you know, there is a philosophy out there. Some countries are run like this. Right. Or this is a little bit of the history behind this. Right. And so when your kids come in contact with it, they will be prepared. Yeah. And now in days gone by, or if you have a really amazing school, and I know this happens in some schools, that will be done in school. But that's not happening in most schools. Yeah. And or the opposite. There's some level of indoctrination that happens. Or the opposite. Schools, right? Exactly. And as a matter of fact, I think that's what he was talking about. I think he was talking about schools that are indoctrinating. But the reality is that we parents, we are really in charge of our children's formation, and we can do that by having those conversations ahead of time. And just close with this. It started with culture, right? And a key, what you kind of said there, a key element of your family culture ought to be dinner time. Yeah. It's not
and it is important for healthy food. It's communal, it's relational. But this ought to be a beautiful place, or at least at some other time, where you have a meaningful conversations about how their day is going, what's going on in their lives, what's being talked about in the classroom or outside of the classroom in their life. What are some of the things that are being brought in, and being parents who create that safe place where they can bring it up, and that they don't feel stupid or silly or, like whatever the topic might be, so that it's an opportunity for them, not just to learn from you as a master, but that you're not just simply giving them information, you're helping form the way they think. You're forming their worldview. Yeah. And really, that's ultimately around the dinner table. That's what we want. And then to again, go back to that image, we're not the bulldozer clearing the way. We're helping prepare the hearts and minds of our kids for them to go out and be lights in this world.
All right. So this next question is kind of like, in some ways, a combination of the first two questions. So maybe we try to answer it a little bit more quickly. Right. But how can I help my family who is dysfunctional and can't get through anything without fighting?
Again, are we talking immediate or family of origin? Let's maybe do a two-layer.
It sounds like, let's start immediate family, like father, mother, children.
We can't get through anything without fighting.
Right.
Because the kids maybe
whatever. They have just really contentious teenagers who, like, they're fighting at the dinner table. Maybe they're fighting about chores. Maybe they're fighting
amongst each other over.
Yeah, maybe they're everybody's just not getting along.
So go from let's just set the ideal. We want to be a little bit more functioning. Okay, let's go. But we're the Messy Family Project, so everybody on some level is dysfunctional, right? Because we are a work in progress. Right. But let's strive to be a little bit more functional. And we want.
Yes, exactly.
And so we have to diagnose the problem. Why do we just sit down with your spouse and say, hey, let's just spend some time? Because oftentimes we think about the logistics and the hows and the whats. Let's talk about the why on a deeper level. Like,
I can't tell you guys how many times we have perceived a problem in our family and sat down and said, what are we doing about this?
What's going on?
It's like, what is happening here?
And you and your spouse are actually pretty smart. I'm gonna just bake that in, right? That you guys,
you and your spouse plus the Lord, can figure it out.
And I believe that the necessary recipe for all good decisions is having the right people in the room and not enough time to make that decision. Okay, because we need a sense that we've got to find a solution, have a sense of urgency, because this is an important thing. So if you're not able to sit through a family meeting or whatever without it deteriorating, right? You need to be able to sit back and diagnose the problem, because it might be something as simple as, little Johnny is all that he wants to do is he's very self-centered, and then if somebody throws him off, well, figure that out, and maybe put Johnny in a place where he's not always hitting and touching his brothers and sisters and ticking everybody else off, and the meeting falls apart from there. Or maybe it's, hey, you guys had a great idea, but you didn't think about how, as mom and dad, but you didn't think how it would be received by the kids, and it went too long. Things got out of hand, and then Dad got really frustrated that no one was paying attention. Mom was trying to defend the idea, but also being sensitive. What is it? Diagnose the problem so that you can then provide a creative and thoughtful solution. And we have some great other things. We have a whole podcast, I think, on like kind of family meetings. Again, I'm not sure.
And on sibling relationships.
Yes.
One thing too, that I think that kind of going back to those disciplines of like first starting with yourself and your own peacefulness, but then secondly, if your family can't get through anything without fighting, I would first look at your marriage, because your children learn how to relate to each other and to other people by watching how you relate to your spouse.
Yeah.
Guys, that is the hard truth.
Yeah,
if you are fighting with your spouse all the time in front of the children, your children are learning this is how you handle someone who you disagree with.
Even if you're not fighting, if there is a cold war going on, where there's either contempt or disrespect or criticism or what have you, work on that. Yeah. That is the foundation. The foundation of your family must be your marriage. And when your marriage is off, there is nothing else in that home that's going to be bearing much fruit.
No, anything we tell you about what to do with kids is not going to do anything until you and your spouse, and that is an excellent point. We're not just saying, don't fight. We are saying you need to show your children, your spouse is your best friend, your lover, your partner, your companion. You are covenantally bound with them. And you need to show affection to them. You need to show love for them. You need to show that you have fun together.
The kids need to bask in the glow of your love.
Absolutely. You get out of the house, go have fun. Go have fun with your spouse. Come back into the house with your teenagers fighting, laughing and having a great time with your spouse. Like, we just had such a great time. Exude joy in your marriage. Yeah. I guarantee that will help change the tenor of your home.
Yeah.
Okay. So start there. And if this is a problem with the children and how they relate, number one, just recognize that they are a work in progress. I always say this, but it's true. My entire childhood, all I remember was fighting with my brothers and sisters. I fought with them all the time. And we worked out a lot of kinks in our relationship, but now we're like best friends, you know? And so don't worry so much about that, but make sure that you have certain boundaries, like we were talking about the family meeting.
Yes.
You have one kid, it's always a problem, put him aside. Don't be afraid to make rules for your family meeting. Don't be afraid to say, guys, mom and dad have the floor. You may not talk unless you raise your hand. You can do that.
We ought to create a good order for their relationship and to make it easy for people to do good.
Yes.
And that might mean shorter meetings. It might mean people sitting in different places. It might be some boundaries, some rules that are like, hey, you don't speak with, and here, and if you do speak out of turn, this is what happens. You're a little guy, we give you slack because it's age appropriate.
Exactly.
We're thoughtful about what those rules are.
And don't be afraid to, if you have one person that is obviously constantly being a problem in a meeting, don't be afraid to remove them. I mean, literally.
Yeah, I think we talk about it in the podcast on meetings,
you know what? If you don't want to participate right now, you can go to your room.
That's okay.
And sometimes just changing that dynamic in a very calm way, that will really help, because maybe that person is just having a hard time for whatever reason. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. That was good. That wasn't too long. All right. This is a question for you. I'm just going to let you answer this one.
Okay, great.
And then I'll answer the next one. So number one, this is your question. How important is it for a father to talk to his teenage son about drugs, alcohol, pornography, sex, etc.? Go.
Extremely. Oh, do you want more than that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So a father and son is what we're talking about here, right? Is that what you just said? How important is it for a father to talk to his teenage son?
All
right.
Yep, so
I'll say the ideal is that you start planting seeds when they're first born. You know, in the way that you treat your kids, the way that you love your spouse, you're sending messages early, pre-adolescence, 9, 10, 11 years old. You're starting to begin changing as a dad how you invest in your son. And you're kind of doing the pre-text for a deeper conversation on sex and relationships and about mature, manly behavior. But 10, 11 years old, you're beginning to plant those seeds. But by the time they're a teenager, you need to have a deep, honest, authentic, beautiful relationship with your son. And if you don't have it, you need to do it. And one of the things that I have been encouraged to do, and I've done with all of our boys, is particularly as they come of age, between 12, 13 years old, take them away for a special weekend. And in that weekend, I fill them up. I fill them up with a lot of fun activities, adventurous things that a young boy on the launching pad into manliness, right? Yeah. We go camping, we go whitewater rafting, we do some fun things. We go paintball, laser tag, whatever. You do some fun stuff where it's probably 75% activity and then 25% conversations. Yeah. But those conversations, and I have a very specific set of conversations and topics that go into drugs, that go into pornography, yes, that go into sex, it goes into dating, and then it goes into male friendships, and some of the core things. What does it mean to be a man? Yeah. What does it look like? What are the powers and unique giftedness that we have been given as men, so they understand who they are and what they're being called to, and the adventure that is calling them, which is masculinity, right? Yeah. Is manhood. And there is, I really believe this truth that only masculinity can confer masculinity. And yes, ideally that is coming from a dad. But it can come from a godfather, an uncle, a grandfather, even yes, an older brother, right? But it is possibly what we're missing more in this world than ever is true Christian men who are dads stepping in and conferring upon their son what it means to be a man, and not just telling them about it, but showing them the way that they can walk. And women, there is a kind of a natural passage to womanhood, physical, and there's a whole relational part. But for men, we do need a rite of passage. We do need to have moments and signature moments. Not that it is only
traditions and rituals and things, you mean?
That really give the young boy a sense that he is moving from boyhood to manhood.
Yeah.
He's not there yet, but he's beginning that journey.
Right.
And you need to call that out with moments that are memorable, that he will be able to reflect back on and say, that was a moment where my dad started treating me differently. My dad started opening up things that before seemed that they were too big for me, or that I wasn't ready to join him at the big boy table. This is now a change. And in that early teen years, it's essential. And again, and it's all the topics that were mentioned there need to be unpacked. And again, kind of like the conversation before, right? You want to create a safe space where you're always attuned to things that are going on. So if you see stuff,
definitely.
But that moment, that growing up weekend that I do with my boys is the beginning of me, or an intentional part on my part to look more acutely at his life. And that gives me a freedom to step in and to engage. And then later I try to surround him with some other great men who I want him to look up to, who he can lean on to, but who also are going to challenge him to step up in men.
So I'm going to use this as a opportunity to shamelessly plug Mike's dad's course that he is developing.
That's right. So
please, if you are not on our newsletter, get on the newsletter. When the course is launched, it's called, well, I won't say what it's called,
we'll say.
But it's something that he is working on in collaboration with some other male leaders. And I think there is a great need in the church. And a lot of leaders in men's ministries are recognizing that a course for dads is essential. And Mike is developing it. So stay tuned, people.
I'm very excited about that. It's going to be awesome.
I think there are many, many people that are very excited. Okay. And we've done it before, but it's different.
Yeah,
it's different.
Very different.
Okay. So as a wife, how do you help your children? Or I'm sorry. As a wife, how do you help your husband be the spiritual head of the family? I would say to a woman, then you need to stop trying to be the spiritual head of your family. I say, number one, back off, lady. And
I'm going to say nothing on this.
And be the spiritual heart of the home. I think the greatest thing that women can do is to hold in their hearts and hold in their minds the vision of who they know their husband truly is and how they believe God the Father sees their husband.
Yeah.
So I think that's what you need to do. You need to, first of all, you need to go before the Lord and say, number one, thank you for my husband. Lord, thank you for the gifts that my husband has. And then you need to say, Lord, give me your heart for my husband. Help me to see him how you see him, Lord. Because guess what? Your husband, a lot of times, I feel like women are like, I want my husband to lead exactly the way I want him to. And then when their husband starts leading and does something different, you're like, wait a minute, that's not what I was thinking, Yeah. And it's like, no, just let it go, because men and women, shocker, see things differently. And they see the needs of the family differently. And they see leadership in the home differently. And that's a beautiful thing because both are needed.
Yes.
You are both needed to bring these children into existence. You are both needed emotionally and physically and spiritually in your home. And so that means that there's going to be a complementarity. You're going to have, certainly I would hope that you would have shared values, of course, and a vision. You need to talk, your husband and wife need to talk about what is our spiritual vision for our home, right? What are the spiritual values we want to impart to our children? And when you're on the same page with that, the next question, be acting as the spiritual head, that is more of an action. So then it's kind of like you go to your husband, you say, all right, this is what we've decided are our shared values. Honey, how do you see your role in living those out? How are we going to do this?
Right.
And then whatever he says, if you feel like you need to refine it or understand it better, support him and say, I love that idea. And then how can I help you? How can I serve you? Because maybe some women are saying, I think we should pray the rosary every night. And maybe dad's like, I don't want to do that. I think that we should just get together and just say grace before meals and have a prayer there. Then moms, you got to be like, okay. And then maybe you talk about it later. You talk about saying the rosary as a family later. You and your husband talk about it if that's something that's really on your heart.
Right.
But you need to allow your husband to lead. And that's where I feel like that Ephesians 6, coming in about wives, be submissive to your husbands, wives submit to your husband. That means saying that's how you help your husband lead. You say, I support you. If this is what you believe our family needs right now, then I support you in doing that. And really allow him to lead. That means kind of like letting go and not being manipulative or controlling. And that's hard. Yeah. But I think it really has to start with the heart of gratitude
and giving
for
him
your
space
husband
then.
And giving him space
Yeah.
and really trusting in God, and learning how to trust your husband in his spiritual leadership, but also making sure you do have that conversation about what are the values, because together you're leading this home together.
Right.
He's not just leading by himself. You're leading it together, but you got to have that conversation about what is our vision for the spiritual life of our family.
And I'll just add one quick thought is that, if you're a man, if you're the dad of the home, you ought to be a spiritual leader. And that doesn't mean, a leader means you have people actually that you're leading, right? If you're simply doing your own thing and no one's following you, you're just out for a walk. Okay. That's not leading, right?
Right.
And if you are foolish enough to think that you have been given all the wisdom that you need to guide and lead spiritually this family, then you're an idiot. You have been given particularly a wife who is meant to give you wisdom, give you insight, heart, right? And I think women have a natural spiritual heart that we as men need to learn from. And we are supposed to lead with and for our wives. It shouldn't be a burden that our wives carry alone, which many women do, but it also isn't a burden. Men should feel the responsibility of leading, but knowing they're not supposed to do it alone, if that makes sense, because there's a complementarity that God designed in family life, that you are to lead with the full knowledge, wisdom, insight, pastoral care, if you will, of your wife, and that you do this together. Because again, that image of a united husband and wife spiritually is a powerful witness to your kids. If they only see dad only, I mean, that's very rare, but if it was just that situation where it was only the dad, there would be a coldness. There would be an aloofness and a remoteness if it was a detached, uncoupled man leading. Yeah. If there was only a woman leading, again, it's lacking. So when the man leads, but doesn't lead in such a way that he is either dismissive, ignoring, not welcoming, not united with his spouse, then it's off.
Yeah.
And God created this dynamic for the good of that family.
One thing too, I want to say, and we've had this question before, is that what to do when your husband refuses to lead. Maybe he is not a practicing Catholic.
Right.
Maybe he just is kind of just like, I'm not doing that at all.
Right.
And I know we've talked about this because there was a woman who asked about putting up religious art,
right,
in their home.
Yeah.
And in those situations, you do have the place to step up and lead your children.
Yes.
Because you, as a Catholic woman,
as a baptized believer, let alone as the mom.
Yeah.
You're the spiritual matriarch of this home.
Right. You don't just say, well, my husband doesn't want to do anything, so I'm not going to do anything. No, that's a distortion of your role as a wife. You do have the authority within your home to say, you know what, honey, I am going to put this religious art up. I am going to go ahead and pray with the kids. We'd love for you to pray and continue to love him and look to his leadership maybe in other areas and, have that couple love, work on your marriage, all of that. But don't be afraid to step up and lead, because your children need to know the love of God. They need to know the love of God. They need to have those traditions and rituals and the Catholic life of the home. Right. Unfortunately, even if your husband isn't leading, don't be afraid to step up. Okay. Very good.
Maybe one more?
Yeah, this is actually, I don't know why this is like a funny question to me, but how do you cultivate virtues when kids seem like they bring out the opposite vice in us parents?
Yeah. How do you form your kids in virtuous even when you may not have that virtue? Is that what you mean?
I'm like, you mean to say that you feel like you have become a worse person since you've had children?
I know. I know.
Welcome to parenthood.
I thought I was a good person. I thought I was a patient person until I had kids.
Oh my gosh. Guys, we were so holy. We were so holy before we had children. You have no idea. Then we had kids and it all went downhill. I know. My heart goes out to you. All right. This is the thing. This is the question that I would always say. Did I become a sarcastic, angry, impatient person when I had children? No, I did not. I was always that way.
It was a diagnosing.
It was always that way. What happened is that my children brought out the true me that God wanted to refine.
That's right.
He wanted me to be aware of. He wanted to make me more aware of my need for his mercy.
Yes.
Right? This is what children do. They drive us to our knees, not just in praying for them, but they drive us to our knees begging God for mercy for ourselves, because this is when we realize, man, I am a sinner. Yeah. I am a sinner in need of the love of God. Yes. You know, most of us really are not confronted with that often. In any way, we are not confronted with our selfishness in any other way that is as powerful as children and their demands upon us physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. This is God's path of holiness for you.
And that's what led us to that kind of our first conviction, if you will, when we started this podcast, is that it's not your job to turn your kids into saints. It's their job to make you into a saint, right? Having children makes us, this is part of God's design, right? That we as parents don't have a seminary. We just have these kids, and these kids drive us crazy. No, what these kids do is they draw that stuff out. They draw really the poison that's in our life. They in a way draw it out so it can see the daylight, so we can deal with it. So if you're struggling with anger or impatience or self-control, whatever it might be, in dealing with your kids or trying to teach them, but you're falling down.
Very natural.
That is not as normal, that is natural, but that is God's design. Yeah. We believe that is God's design to make you into who you are meant to be. That's right. So if you recognize that in part, the best gift you can give your kids, the most powerful way to form them is to work on yourself.
Absolutely.
And again, we won't go into great detail. We talked about anger and all these other issues in this episode alone, but that is what God wants you to first deal with. And as you, like, I'll say this, right? I know people who have struggled with addictions, who, having conquered it, can speak with authenticity and a power that others can't. Yes. So as you're trying to form your kids, that doesn't mean you stop forming your kids, right? We're not saying don't do anything. We're saying work on yourself so that when you do work on your kids, if you will, if you're having a greater sensitivity and awareness of God's mercy because you need it, right? Yeah. And then you deal with them a little bit more generously, a little bit more forgiving, mercifully, right? You're not the servant who was forgiven much and then didn't pass on that forgiveness to the fellow servant, right? Exactly. So you're the kids that are under your care, the children that you were stewarding, you can look with greater mercy in the eyes of the Father who has welcomed and forgiven you. But you also say, but that's it. We don't want you just to stay in your lack of self-control. We see something greater for you. Yeah. And we know it means your fruitfulness, your good, and so when you yourself can have that deeper, authentic kind of conversion, right? That's why ideally you don't have kids when you're still a kid, that you have hopefully worked a little bit on growing in virtue, a little bit more on relying and trusting in God. But every child has forced me to my knees. Yeah. And that is a good thing. God wants you there, but he doesn't want you to wallow in your anger or whatever it might be. He wants to call you to something greater. And so as you're being called higher, you call your children to higher, because you look at them like God the Father and says, I know that's not who you were made to be. I know you're better than that. You can treat your siblings better than that. You can work on your emotions better than that, or whatever the situation is, passing on that virtue in a more human way, because your kids will receive truth when it's given from a platform of love that they know relationally, they feel known, seen, felt, loved, but they also know you're speaking out of an authenticity that you've weathered these storms.
Yeah, that you're not perfect. You don't come off like you're perfect, but
and it's okay. We're doing this. Too. And particularly for teenagers to know, hey, we're doing this together.
Right.
We're struggling.
And so I think that like on a practical level, I think that it is good that you have your own time for rest and prayer and connection with the Lord, to avail yourself of that mercy.
Good, yes.
I think it is good if you see things coming out from your own, maybe your own childhood, maybe there's own deep wounds, get them taken care of. Find a professional spiritual director, counselor, mentor, coach, whatever, to kind of work through that stuff. And the third thing, what has always helped me in dealing with my own vices was other moms, other community, where I could say, other people who are like, I know how you feel. Like, I felt like this, these are things that I've done. This is what has helped me. Those kinds of things I think are really, really important.
All right. I think we should call it a wrap on these. Are some great conversations. I hope these were helpful to you. They answered some of the questions and the heart longing that you might have. And we have obviously lots more in the podcast. If you are new to the program, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think about this. And if you have questions, please send them in. And if you want to sign up for the webinar that's on September 11th, or watch the recording if you can't join it live, please sign up at messyfamilyproject.org, or visit us at CatholicCouplesGetaway.com to hear about our trip to the Bahamas as well as Austria. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you.
Family, we're taking a chance.